Can I ask you a
cities.
question? Do you know what the World Bank is, or the
Yeah,
IMF? What's the
absolutely.
IMF?
International Monetary Fund.
Okay, so can you explain how this giant global conspiracy works to me?
Basically, they're designing to go after municipalities, and they control you on a municipal level. It's all about climate change, as you say, or finances, and then they're going to go into central digitalized banking, and then they'll control what you can
Okay,
buy, how much you can
nothing you
buy.
said makes any sort of sense. What's up, pirate? What's going on? What's your take?
You invited me on your live here, or at least your moderator did.
Okay.
Not so much as defending Trump, but supporting him. I think that as far as setting the American economy in a proper direction and not with standing world governing organizations, he's done a much better job.
Trump? What do you mean? I don't know what that means. Can you be more? What do you mean governing body? I don't know what that.
Things like the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum, UN treaties.
So these are
control any of that.
Yeah, it doesn't. Those are commissions that are put together on a global stage to try and like the World Economic Forum is a forum for people to talk about economics. They don't have any political power. The only political power that they have is that incredibly important people go there, so people listen. But that's not like they control the economy.
Said they infiltrated Canadians' cabinet.
What?
Klaus Schwab said he's infiltrated cabinet of Canada.
I'm sure.
Well, lots of videos online of it, and it's fact.
Okay, where do I go? What do I look up?
Look up Klaus Schwab saying he's infiltrated the cabinet of Canada. You'll find a video.
Okay, Klaus Schwab.
All of this is like no reputable sources.
Coming right out of Davos from someone's phone while he's talking. That's pretty reputable.
I see a TikTok video.
It's brought up in the House of Commons in Canada. Talked about in the House of Commons in Canada.
I'm watching the video. Okay, what does this have to do?
Well, Biden is...
So hold on. They're trying to secretly control everything, but he's also bragging about having people involved in Trudeau's cabinet.
No, they're not trying to be secret anymore. That's the whole joke about it. They don't really care if you know. They're just going to control it.
What do you think the World Economic Forum is doing?
They're trying to take over control of cities.
Can I ask you a question? Do you know what the World Bank is, or the IMF? What's
Absolutely.
the IMF?
International Monetary Fund.
Okay, so can you explain how this giant global conspiracy works to me?
Basically, they're designing to go after municipalities, and they control you on a municipal level. It's all about climate change, as you say, or finances, and then they're going to go into central digitalized banking, and then they'll control what you can buy.
Okay, nothing you said makes any sort of sense. I'm asking you specifically, what is Klaus Schwab's involvement in the global economy? Because I don't know if you. This is the thing that like is frustrating for me as someone that's followed the IMF and the World Bank and what they've done globally for a very long time, is that your take is basically there's this evil group of people that's job is to control the world, and that's not what's going on at all. So when you have Davos, when you have the World Economic Forum, when you have any of these other economic forums, like when the World Bank meets or the IMF meets, all of these people, especially in Western countries, believe in what's called neoliberalism. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term, okay? But basically, it is about laissez-faire market across the world. However, neoliberalism, as it's now defined, at least in modern times, means that companies with money, or not companies, but funds with money like the IMF, the World Bank, that's given investment capital, they will call and they will get loans from countries and they will make them privatize a bunch of shit. They'll make them do a bunch of really, really significant measures to attempt to make sure that they get their money back. And as a result, it usually leaves countries impoverished in an immense amount of debt that they can't control and without public anything. And most world leaders recognize, in fact, funnily enough, Klaus Schwab recognizes that practice is not good, as detrimental to going forward in the world, right? As the economic thing. But you guys seem to think that he's like this evil dude that's trying to destroy the world, when really he's out here trying to signal to people like, hey, we have to do something about the system that we have, because if we don't, and he even said it in a quote that you guys misquote all the time, by 2030, you will have nothing and enjoy it. Right? That was what he was referring to. And so you guys have like bastardized everything that I don't agree with him economically about anything, but what you guys are saying that he's doing is just not true.
It's kind of funny when you say that, when his strategic partners are all these billionaires that you're saying that are taking advantage of all these world
I'm aware. Yeah, I'm aware. But the problem that you've missed out on in the talk that a lot of it has had is that these billionaires are recognizing, not all of them, not major corporations, not all of them, but there are enough billionaires that recognize that the wealth income inequality that's happening in the world and the pillaging of local resources at the detriment of the country that these companies are working in is not working. And it's causing, as having a lot of this conversation, China to have a larger geopolitical strata than it otherwise would. Because it's allowing people to go, well, listen, China's not a good country. It's authoritarian, but the United States just weaponizes their monetary funds to destroy countries. So really, who's better, right? So that's the argument that's happening. And what is the path forward now that neoliberalism is dead?
Yeah, well, we ship all our goods to China just to buy it back.
What we were talking
That's
about
what
economics.
I do.
So
I ship out natural resources every single day. That's what I do.
Okay.
And so China just buys them, rebrands them, and sends them back to us.
Sir, there's a different conversation happening up here.
Yeah, I don't know.
What talking about China's impact on the economy? They buy everything, they own everything, and then they can shut the environmental ministers shut down everything, and soon you can't do anything in your own country. Soon it'll be so
I don't know what you mean environmental whatever have shut everything down. I don't know what that means. I'm not sure. There is a major concern about environmental effects of really detrimental practices of corporations. And there's very real concerns about putting in mines that are going to hurt people around them. I think that's a legitimate concern. There's concern about climate change and the effects that it's going to have, and interesting enough, on billionaires, the amount of money that they're going to lose as well.
Billionaires don't lose. Hands down, billionaires don't lose.
Sure, but there is a concern about them losing money in their company's future. If, for instance, you can't, you have massive storms and shit that are destroying their plants.
Yeah, but they sit there and spray our air with a whole bunch of crap. So,
oh, the aliens are coming to get him. So I don't know what you mean by they're spraying. I don't know what that means.
Weather modification, it's a part of their plan where they go in, they spray aluminum dioxides and all sorts of chemicals in our atmosphere.
Are you talking about the silver clouds thing?
He's talking about chemtrails.
You talking about chemtrails or silver clouds?
Chemtrails.
Chemtrails aren't real.
Oh yeah, they are.
No.
Look up the weather.
It's what's called a contrail caused by water vapor. You can
no, it's chemtrails, and they're actually legit.
What would be the reason? What would be the reason of chemtrails, man?
What would be the reason? Weather modification. Just look up even in the federal government.
You don't need to have. Listen. There absolutely is ways to modify weather, and you don't need chemtrails to do it.
Yeah, you do.
No, you don't. They did it. No, you don't. They did it in Beijing. They don't just drop it out of any passenger plane.
Oh, it's not. There's special planes.
So we have contrails. You're aware, right? Like if we go...
Chemtrails, they're a big difference, and they're real. You haven't done your research.
When did this start?
When has weather modification started? It goes back...
When did chemtrails start?
Vietnam.
So this is the Battle of Great Britain in 1940 that has, interestingly enough, contrails behind the planes.
Yeah, but there's a difference between a contrail and a chemtrail. I live on the water, man. I see the difference.
Me too. There is no difference.
I see them checker the sky, and then it gets cloudy. And where did them clouds come from? They came from the weather modification.
No,
because otherwise, I'd watch the clouds roll in.
Where do you live?
Where do I live? I live on the west of Columbia.
I know. You live in California, so is it the port of LA or something like that? Or is it LA? Or
I live up much north, Vancouver Island.
Vancouver Island in Washington?
No,
or
Canada.
In Canada? Vancouver's not an island.
Vancouver Island. Vancouver Island is
okay. I live in Seattle. And I don't know if you know this, but it's cloudy here a lot.
Yeah.
Why would you need to make weather modification if it rains every other week?
Well, this time of year we're not getting too many chemtrails, but come summertime it's just loaded full of them.
Okay. Do you remember the season a couple years ago where we had 76 days without rain? Where was the weather modification? It was like 5 or 6 years ago. It's actually more than that, probably like 7 or 8 years ago. And we every other summer we go like months and months without rain. So why are we having droughts and wildfires if they can just do this?
The wildfires they've even proved are arson, man. They're not natural.
What?
Most of the
they?
wildfires are set by arsonists.
Who is they? What? I just really quick. What is the reason for wanting to do weather modification? That's what I'm curious about. What is the
Supposedly to
reason?
block the sun to cool the earth. That is their
Okay.
general plan.
Okay, yeah, you're conflating two different things. There was this group of scientists many years ago, probably like 15 or 20 years ago, that created a group to attempt to turn clouds more reflective. Okay. And the thought process is that if we can't stop climate change, we make clouds more reflective. And then that way we can cool the earth down so that we don't have to deal with the long-term effects of climate change for some time while we figure out how to get the carbon out of the air. That was a plan that has never gone into effect. This is all like scientists working like pro bono to try and do this, but this has nothing to do with Davos or anything. And even if they were, even if like the World Economic Forum was behind this, why would it be bad?
Because too much government control is too much government control.
What does that mean?
What do you mean? What does government control mean? You want to be able to.
I don't. You just say you can't. Like you're just generally saying government control, and that's not an argument. That's just paranoia.
No, it's not paranoia. I live in every day.
Right. Why does it matter if we give the government that kind of control to stop climate change from happening? We give the government control to do lots of things.
Oh, I could see if it was actually a problem, but I mean, especially here in Canada, we're 1.6% of the world's contribution. It means we could all fall off the face of the planet and it wouldn't make a difference.
Okay, but we're talking about affecting the entire globe. Like this is the problem: is that you have to have a purpose, a reason, a motive. Why are they doing this? What would be the reason that you would want to create some international conspiracy? And in what way would it be easier to just dump this shit out of a plane than use all of your money to convince people to do it anyways?
Well, weather modification is to create a false global climate change.
Why? It's not false. Climate change is very real.
Oh yeah, it's been happening.
We see it every.
No, this is a contradiction. So they're both creating climate change, but are also utilizing technology to fight said climate change.
They're not fighting it. They're manipulating.
You just said they're using chemtrails to combat climate change and how much sunlight is produced during the day.
That's right. They're not actually fixing it.
So that's fighting climate change.
I mean, yeah.
Why do you think that climate change
You
is
realize
not
that's
real?
a contradiction, right?
I know. It never needs to make sense.
Of course not.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. At least you're honest.
so why would a bunch of people be making up climate change?
To push taxes, push control. They have an agenda here in Canada. It's called a 15-minute city. They want us all living in tight groups.
We don't have 15-minute cities in the Northwest. They're not working on those. Sorry.
They're working on them
reference
here.
you're in reference to what's called the line in Saudi Arabia that's never going to happen.
Oh no, they're right here in if you go into any of the municipalities, you go to their websites here in Canada and you type in 15-minute city or 15-minute smart city, they have them all over here in Canada.
So what's the negative there?
What's the negative? Freedom of movement, freedom of travel, the ability to go and enjoy the earth.
Right here, the 15-minute city conspiracy spreads to Canada. So do you know what a 15-minute city is supposed to be? This is, by the way, this was posted by Saudi Arabia. This was like their idea.
Well,
do you know what the idea was?
Minutes.
Do you know what the idea is behind it?
So you're within 15 minutes of everything you need.
A 15-minute walk. That doesn't mean that you can't leave the city.
When they go to a CBDC and they have totalitarian control and they tell you you're not leaving your area due to a climate emergency, they can do whatever they want. They proved that in 2020.
What? That has nothing to do with climate change.
No, it's just the tools of control.
Can you explain to me the concept? I know it's always control. Can you explain to me the concept? The government doesn't need to make up wild conspiracies to get you to agree with stuff. They can just do it. But can you explain to me what climate change is and what's happening, like generally?
They're worried about the atmosphere and the parts per million going over 400 million parts per million.
Oh, yeah, sure. 400 parts per million, yeah. It's already over 400 parts per million. What's the reason? What is it? What's happening in the atmosphere? I'm just trying to gauge your depth of knowledge here.
They're worried about the greenhouse effect, which is continuous heating of our oceans, which once our oceans heat up, the fish life dies and it just contributes to the food chain.
Yeah, it's not just, it creates an acidified ocean. You have to have a certain pH level, right? And so when climate change is happening, the amount of carbon is causing an acidification in the oceans, killing off sea life. We've already just saw this with king crab, or sorry, snow crab. or billions of snow crab are lost. We're not sure if they're even going to come back. So that's not just the only thing that we're talking about. We're talking about the lack of rain in places like the Southwest. We're talking about the inability to grow crops. Crops on the Colorado River Basin have had to been stopped. Some people have not been allowed to grow crops because there's not enough water. Like, that's what we're talking about.
Well, that could all be fixed with water pipelines. There's so much fresh water in North America that could just easily be piped just like they pipe oil.
I mean, so here's the thing. Probably, but that's not going to solve all of the issues. That's not going to solve all the issues.
Yeah,
we should be working on pipelines, sure, but that's not going to solve the issues, because you're talking about California, and the amount of water that they need is an insane amount of water, right? So you could pipeline some in for crops and stuff, but you're not going to keep them. Yeah.
There's so many dams on that Columbia River, and everyone has so much rights to so much water held behind reservoirs that they don't let it naturally flow anymore. Of course, there's a problem.
So we have, like, the problems from climate change is essentially this. The Earth's atmosphere, okay, is heating up because there's too much carbon and too much greenhouse gases in the atmosphere that we have released. Some greenhouse gases, like methane, hold heat at a rate 25 times carbon. There's just a lot more carbon that we're burning. And as a result, it's trapping in heat, because typically radiation comes in, bounce off the surface, gets shot back up into the sky, goes out into space. This time it's hitting, going out, and stopping in the carbon. It's being picked up by the carbon. So you're having a situation where you're looking at the Earth heating, right? And you're looking at a number of different things. You're looking at the slowing of the polar vortexes, which means that when a storm system moves over a place, it stays there for longer, which is why you get more severe storms and you get more sustained storms, leading to more danger. It's also moving storms out of their normal path. So for instance, the hurricane that hit New York and New Jersey, right? It's not something that they're used to, prepared for, build for. So when they get hit, it hurts them a lot more. It's reducing the amount of crops. It is reducing the amount of water. And the real problem is going to be growing. The real problem is
CO2 is plant food.
Huh?
CO2 is plant food. They inject it into greenhouses. Why? Because it produces faster crops.
So yeah, but we have too much of it, and we're losing water. Like,
too much
there,
of it.
There is an amount. There is an amount, like a max limit on what a crop can bring in.
Yeah, but I mean, if the atmosphere had too much carbon dioxide in it, they wouldn't need to add carbon dioxide to the greenhouse, would they?
What?
If there was too much CO2 in the atmosphere,
what does this have to do? I don't know. I don't even know that that's true, but because I don't know anything about greenhouses. But I don't understand what's the argument.
CO2, they inject it into greenhouses to make the plants grow faster, meaning that there isn't enough CO2 in the atmosphere to make those plants grow at the speed they would like.
Even if that were true, you're talking about 2 times the amount of parts per million of carbon we're supposed to have.
How are we supposed to have 80%? Anything? That number has changed for billions of years. Where's it supposed to?
No,
what, 1 billion?
No.
1 billion
so
years
we
ago,
have not had. We have not had carbon this high since literally dinosaurs were here. It's like.
Yeah,
well, I don't. What is it? It's like 10 million years now. It's like 10 million years. Actually, no. Well, I don't know when. I don't know. I'm not a fucking archaeologist. Anyways, it's like 10 million years.
So yeah,
it's like 10 million. Right. It's like 10 million. So we're not seeing the amount of carbon that we're putting in the atmosphere cycling out. The density of carbon in oil is significant. So when you burn it, you're burning a ton of CO2.
Well,
but it's not just one person doing it. It's the fact that the world is doing it. What?
Today's engines are far more efficient at reducing the carbon emissions.
Okay. And
so therefore
we've still added a ton of CO2 to the atmosphere. I can't remember how many trillions of tons it is. We've added a ton to it. So even though we're adding less to it at a lesser rate, which is, I think it's true, but it was only true in 2020. I don't think that's true anymore. You're talking about still a significant amount of CO2 in the continued rise.
Yeah, but we can't exist without the use of fuels. We'll all freeze to death and die in the winter.
Okay, but that doesn't mean that climate change isn't happening.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, Canada's contribution is so low, it shouldn't be even worry. I mean, anybody.
It's everyone. It's everyone, though. That's why we have to be concerned.
But my personal contribution doesn't even adequate to one politician's air flight.
Okay, sure, but we're talking about a collective. I don't understand what your argument is here. The argument is whether or not climate change is real, and very clearly the evidence is overwhelming that it's happening and it's significant and it poses a serious risk to every country on Earth. You can imagine, right now, I forget how many climate migrations there are a year. I think it's 50 million. There are hundreds of millions of people that are will be below sea level by the turn of the century that have to move. There's islands chains that will no longer exist.
Well, that's been happening for thousands of years. Look at the Mediterranean. You find cities underwater lots of times.
Okay, but,
right, but it's accelerating to a degree that's not on par with where we were 1,000 years ago.
Right. So what you guys frequently misunderstand is there is a chart that you guys point to that goes, or there's a fact that you guys point to that you don't really understand, where you go, oh, the climate has been going, there's been parts per million going up and down. The climate's been going up and down through cycles for forever. And that's true, but that's not the problem here. The problem is that we've taken what should be a cycle that happens every 200,000 to 400,000 years, and we've made it happen in less than 100. How the fuck did we get here, Jaden? I don't know. It's a different.
Yeah, but I think we've had 2 major wars, and we continue to use war. And I mean, how much pollution does a bomb cost? I mean, really?
I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to respond to that. Jaden, I don't know how to respond to that. I don't know what to tell you. It doesn't. You're not really making an argument at this point. Like that's not an argument. I don't know. I don't know what the argument is.
Sorry.
Do you have an argument? I don't.
I think we should stop using. If we're worried about the environment, let's stop using weapons. Let's stop bombing. Let's stop that first before we worry about everybody else.
No, it just like, this is like we have to do this is a precursor before we do anything. It's not. Our military does use up a lot of fuel. They do use up and create a lot of emissions, and they're actively trying to bring in hybrid and to deal with it, because even the military understands the significance of it.
So anyways,
I don't know.
I'm running out of reception here as we get further off.
Okay.
Cool. All right.
I'm losing sight of land.
All right. Well, take care.
All right. Yeah.